my sort of bugbear a little bit is the way Lampard gets treated by the media compared to Ole, and even slightly by sort of fans as well, because Lampard's heralded as this sort of
yeah,
you know, full of that. I went to
He's a journalist, you know.
Did you?
Yeah, multi-award-winning journalist.
You went to did 11 plus, went to grammar school.
Passed the 11 plus, went to grammar school.
Did you actually? Is that true?
Yeah, I had to get 2 buses to get there.
The 11
I lived
plus
in a
still
council
existed when Joe was going to school.
But I passed, and my mum, even though I wanted to go to comprehensive with all my mates, she said, "No, you got a grammar, you've got it, and you're going." And thankfully, that led to my 6 GCSEs, A to C. So anyway, Lampard gets treated by the press.
6.
Lampard gets treated by the press like he's some sort of tactical genius.
Yeah.
Whereas Ollie's looked at as like he's just sort of fell into this job, lucky to have it, should have got sacked, keeping it warm for Maurizio Pochettino, all the rest of it. And I think that's slightly unfair because when you look at the records, they're almost very similar. And I think the thing people always going about with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is this idea that he only got the job on a technicality of a legend that recommended you. Like, he got the caretaker job because of his United connections, obviously. Not necessarily what he did at Mulder, but more or less the fact that he was a sort of safe pair of hands. He knew the club, bring him in. But he got the permanent manager's job because he more or less forced that. Yeah. Because of the amazing run that it went on. No one thought we were going to win, what was it, 11 out of 13 games.
Do you know what he did?
It was ridiculous.
Do you know when, like, someone has a breakup and what you do is, it's your old friends, everyone comes out, oh, you got a friend who, you've just broken up. I'll go around to their house, make sure she's all right. Next thing you know, you were mates for a long time before this. Next thing you know, oh, hang on a sec, there's a bit of a spark here. Next thing you know, you're going out with one of your best mates because you just happen to be in the right place at the right time and you prove yourself to be trustworthy. That's what he did. He's going out with one of his best mates. And no one suspected that was going to happen, but it did. And this thing as well, where this idea that, it's not a good enough qualification to have been a legend at the club you're managing. Well, how come dozens of managers throughout history, Guardiola, I mean, the list is almost endless in terms of players. Cruyff, players that get managerial jobs at clubs mostly because they played for that club. That's Zidane, same thing.
I was thinking,
it's a well-established route into managing a top team.
And also, like,
I don't see the problem with it.
You know, Ollie was a reserve coach at United. Went and did his sort of bits at Mulder. Obviously, Cardiff was a disaster, but he was on a hiding to nothing there. Comes back, given the caretaker manager's job, does a good job, gets the permanent job on the back of it. Then you look at Lampard, who, let's face facts, didn't get the Chelsea job because of what he did at Derby County. Didn't go, I tell you what, that guy who's just got more or less the same points as the previous manager at Derby and didn't get them promoted. Let's give him the job here at one of the biggest clubs in the world. No, he got it because he was a legend at Chelsea, which I understand. There's nothing wrong with that. But then his record last season was okay, finished below Ole. But then people say, well, we have this transfer ban and he lost Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard has been shocking. He was on his way out. The transfer ban wasn't a transfer ban. He still bought players. And also, they had something ridiculous, like 60 players out on loan, which he then recalled, the likes of Mason Mount and Tammy Abrahams and all the rest of it. And he still had a core of very good players. N'Golo Kante, Olivier Giroud, Azpilicueta. I can't say that name.
Azpilicueta.
Thank you, Azpilicueta. And also some others who I quite rate, like Rudiger, I think is a decent player. Yeah. I know not everyone will agree. So he had a core of good players there, calls in all these loanees, still allowed to spend a little bit of money, well, a lot of money actually. Yeah. And finishes, okay, he was only just below Ollie, but finished below Ollie. But people still push this narrative of, Lampard, this great up-and-coming young British manager. Yeah. Ollie fell into this job and doesn't know what he's doing. He's beaten Lampard 3 times, for God's sake.
And also,
don't do that by accident.
Three times. 3 out of 4. I couldn't tell you the person who is supposedly going to take over from Frank Lampard at Chelsea. I couldn't tell you the name of the next Chelsea manager. Whereas every single person, whether it's us, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's pundits, whoever it may be, everyone knows that the person being lined up or the person that is rumoured to be lined up is Maurizio Pochettino. That isn't a surprise to anyone. And I think like the disrespect of the fact that, first of all, Alex walking in front of the camera every 2 seconds, and second of all, it's like we're waiting for Ole to get sacked so Poch can be the next manager. Whereas it doesn't feel like that's the case with Lampard. It feels like it's, take your time, or you're doing a good job. You had this transfer ban. This is a team that won the league 4 years ago. Chelsea won the league was it 2016 they won the league?
Let's not forget as well, right? People forget. Ollie came in December. We were an absolute horror show. The game against Anfield was one of the worst performances by a United team I've ever seen. He's not allowed to go out and buy players in January. Yeah. Like, he comes in as caretaker and the Glazers aren't about to get the checkbook out for a caretaker manager. And also, what happens whilst he's caretaker manager, which is through no fault of his own, we go dishing out these long-term contracts to players that he don't even want. So all these players like Smalling, Jones, Ashley Younger handing long-term Rojo, giving these contracts, which he's not in charge of because he's only caretaker, and then he's got to try and get rid of these players who are on 120k a week. And it's like you're actually hindering him. You're not helping him. You're giving players that he doesn't necessarily want long-term, massive contracts so he can't move them on. He does the difficult decisions. The likes of Sanchez, the likes of Lukaku, the likes of Fellaini. He moves them all on. The one player he wants to keep hold of, Herrera, the club mess about, so he can't.
Yep.
Every signing Ollie's made, even, and this might be a controversial opinion, but I don't care, Dan James has been a good signing for Manchester United. Now, they have. Now, you can Dan James, what, the whole 15 million on him.
And he was United's top assist maker until about November last season. I know that he hasn't been incredible, he hasn't necessarily improved that much, but during a really difficult time for United last year, he was one of our main attacking threats when Martial was out for 3 months. I think it was 8 assists he got last season, which, you know, it's not setting the world alight. It was 15 million quid as an emergency backup for someone, and he wasn't even meant to be a first team player straight away, or at least not the first choice in the first team.
It just frustrates me. You look at, you know, you mentioned there about like Martial was out. We lost Martial for 3 months. We lost Paul Pogba for almost the entire season. We lost Marcus Rashford, who was on fire at the time, for a couple of months just before lockdown. He's had to cope with that. And yet, during that time when we've been missing these players, he beats Pep Guardiola, 3 times? Who does that? Do you know what I mean? That's like unheard of, yet he does it. Doesn't get any credit. You know, beats Lampard, like I say, 3 times. Gets results home and away against Leicester. Admittedly, you know, one of those results is after lockdown when we've got all these players back. Wanted Bruno earlier, didn't get him. Eventually gets him at the end of the January transfer window. Bruno was absolutely amazing, and I just think it's just annoying to see this sort of biasness in the press where Frank's this saviour and Ollie, you're almost waiting for him to fail. Like any loss, right? Get Poch in. He's not up to the job. Do me a favour, come on.
I think the thing with Ollie and Frank, Lampard was always brought in because of the transfer ban. They weren't able to back a manager, and I think there was almost this free hit element to Frank Lampard where they were kind of going, they've not tried this on the Abramovich before. They've always had big name managers. They've always gone out and found the biggest name they can that was available, spent the money and got them in. With the transfer ban, they've brought Lampard in, and he's kind of got a free hit at it in the kind of way that Ollie did in the caretaker bit of it. Now, the thing with Ollie is that, you know, everyone can mention the CV, but, you know, Van Gaal came in. I mentioned this just before. Van Gaal come in with the best CV, one of the top CVs in the world, couldn't do it because he was limited by things and didn't get things. And then Mourinho came in, and whilst there was bits of success at times, I don't think he got Manchester United. I don't think he understood what needed to happen. I think that Ollie's come in and he understands that this is how things need to happen. These are the players, these are the standards these players need to set, and this is how it should be, and this is the only way it is. And it's not in terms of the quality of the football almost. It's the point of you need to represent Manchester United in a way of putting 100% in it, and we need to play this kind of football. And Ollie's got that bang on all the way through.
I think certainly of the managers we've had post Fergie, Ollie knows what it is to play for Manchester United, and not just because he played for him, but he's got the work ethic, he understands the club, he understands the fans, and part of that comes from playing for the club. And you know, sometimes when you have a club that, I know a lot of clubs like to think they've got a style of play, and you hear West Ham fans and Newcastle fans coming out and saying, you're not doing it the West Ham way. What's the West Ham way? Have 2 good players in a World Cup 55 years ago. Is that like Newcastle like, we think Steve Bruce has taken us as far as you can go. Where do you think you can go? You Newcastle, like, fair enough, but United actually have a style of play that has been established. God, excuse me, I'm getting emotional. That has been established consistently for 70 years. Now, that is something that needs to be replicated and that the club can be proud of. But Jose didn't care about that. He played, you know, he had youngsters on the bench and he played Rashford because he didn't have anyone else. Van Gaal cared about that a little bit, but Ole actually cares about what Manchester United is. And he knows that as well as any of us sat here because he played for us for 15 years. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's
and
something
then went on and coached as well.
Exactly. And I think that's something that's a massive thing for United, more than it would be for other clubs. The fact that you have someone in charge who knows what the club is about is a massive thing.
It is, and like, you know, the sort of anything Ollie does seems to get scrutinised more than other managers did at United. And the criticism he gets for some of the things is just ridiculous. Like, I've seen people criticising him in press conferences or about his press conferences, saying, why has he said that? Why has he done that? Now, listen, I went to David Moyes' first press conference. He was an absolute rabbit in headlights. And he mentions Bill Shankly as a sort of someone an example to follow. The most ridiculous statement I've ever heard from a Manchester United manager. Louis van Gaal had pieces of paper, was triggered by Sam Allardyce, and had pieces of paper to prove that he didn't play long ball. Jose Mourinho brought a piece of paper with a list of 45 names on it to his first Manchester United press conference. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer backs his players, sticks up for them, says when he's, he wants more signings, does exactly what we want him to do, and people go, oh, look at him, he's doing what he's doing, he's huge. What are you on about?
Yeah.